Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we'll be talking about the Spider-Man No Way Home box office because it has reached yet another milestone as it has now surpassed Rogue One and The Dark Knight. Again, this is a, quote, pandemic era film, which is destroying various pre-pandemic films in the box office, which again is destroying the pandemic box office narrative, which has been used as an excuse for countless box office flops this year. And it just goes to show that if you create a product that people actually want to go see, if you create something for fans, for the fans, by the fans, I don't know necessarily if that's true, but it's something that's actually for the fans, right? If you actually provide fan service and actually provide a story and actually provide the hype around that story, fans will actually end up go out to go see that film in droves, which is why this film is outpacing not just films like Rogue One, The Dark Knight, but is also outpacing, as of this point, films like Avengers Infinity War, at the very least in the domestic box office. And I would suspect that it actually has a decent chance of even being able to match the global total of Infinity War. But we still have a ways to go for that to be the case. That's just my own suspicion. Before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, live that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So, as you see from this headline from yesterday, deadline, Spider-Man No Way Home, $536+ million domestic box office, best Rogue One, The Dark Knight, and that, of course, is before you adjust for inflation. And don't worry, I will take care of those inflation concerns. And even though The Dark Knight, when adjusted for inflation, has a higher domestic box office, there is no doubt that Spider-Man No Way Home will surpass even the adjusted for inflation number, and also, especially when you compare the same time of release and where both of these films are, Spider-Man No Way Home is very quickly outpacing Dark Knight. And keep in mind, Dark Knight, very successful film, very highly praised film, and yet Spider-Man No Way Home doing so much better. As it says here, Thursday update, Wednesday box office numbers in its 13th day of release. It counts $536.6 million at the domestic box office, making it the number 12 highest grossing U.S. film, Canada film of all time, swinging past the 2016 Christmas hit of Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Again, Christmas hit is a bit too friendly there. And Warner Brothers' top grossing stateside title of all time, The Dark Knight, on the all-time box office domestic. And again, those are before you adjust for inflation. It then talks about how it will next pass up films like The Lion King and Disney's Incredibles 2, which again, I think it'll do relatively easily. And then says that it has the 13-day gross being the third highest of all time behind Avengers Endgame and Star Wars The Force Awakens. So the fact that this film is in the discussion with films like Endgame and The Force Awakens, which I think even those of us who, in retrospect, look back to The Force Awakens and say, at best, there was some pretty interesting ideas that then ultimately got destroyed by The Last Jedi and that got completely buried by The Rise of Skywalker, we look back and say that was a phenomenon, right? That was Star Wars returning. A lot of people were excited because they thought, hey, we're finally going to get new, awesome Star Wars stories, and then very quickly we realized that that was just not the case. But again, early on, a lot of people were very excited, which, again, the fact that this film, No Way Home, is in the discussion with these films, even though we're in the midst of a pandemic and Omicron, I still remember. I have a very, very fond memory. I still remember when I made my West Side Story box office breakdown, and I said, this film's going to lose massive amounts of money, and the number one comments that were being posted was, Omicron, Omicron. It's like, okay, 1 week later, did it just magically disappear? Was it just magically delicious? I don't honestly know. But it goes on to say the sequel collected $20.2 million on Wednesday from over 4,000 theaters, which was a 5% drop from Tuesday, the third best second Wednesday of all time. And again, that is incredibly impressive for that movie. Going to the numbers, as you can see here, easily beating all of the other films in competition. There really is no competition. As I had mentioned before with West Side Story, not even making $8 million there. The King's Man really not making a whole lot. Sing 2, really the only competition. At least some kids are going to see this film and has a potential to be able to break even, as it is showing itself, some pretty strong holds, at least from day on to day on. Comparing this film to some of the other films that had been mentioned in previous videos. So obviously, I've been comparing this to Endgame and Infinity War because though this film will not be able to reach the levels and heights of Avengers Endgame, it likely will be able to at least have a chance of matching the $2.05 billion of Avengers Infinity War. And part of the reason why that is the case, or why I believe that is the case, is one, I think that there is still a lot of money to be made in the international box office. I don't know necessarily if it's going to reach the $1.3 billion, but that can easily be offset by the fact that this film is going to again projected at this point to make around $750 million domestically by the end of its run, which will be able to be quite a bit higher than the domestic run of even that of Infinity War. And just saying that out loud should make everyone say, wow, that's pretty insane. Especially, again, it's going to beat Rogue One in its end total, and it's going to end up beating Dark Knight as well. But here is, again, the very important factor. This is when you adjust the numbers for inflation, and as you can see, the film has not yet bested The Dark Knight, as The Dark Knight, when adjusted for inflation, domestically had around $680.9 million. So, once again, it's important for us to always adjust those numbers accordingly and remind ourselves that this is a pandemic-era film that is beating out films that, one, cost a lot more, and therefore had a lot more marketing, and you could arguably say a lot more hype around them, a lot more support around them. And obviously, we could argue, too, that Spider-Man No Way Home had a lot of hype because of the rumors and because of speculation, all that stuff, and I totally would agree. But I think that if we're honestly saying to ourselves that 2 weeks out, a week out, that we would have been saying that this film would have been in the same discussion as Endgame, as The Dark Knight, I don't think, if we were being honest, we would have been in that position. And yet, look at where it is now. It is truly going gangbusters. Even more gangbusters is the fact that this film, as I mentioned before, is destroying all of its competition, making $20.2 million on this Wednesday. As you can see, compared to Endgame and compared to that of Infinity War, it is doing incredibly well. $536 million versus the $481 of Infinity War. So that's the reason why I suspect that this film, one, will have a higher domestic total, because it's already easily outpacing this film, and it's coming out and still going to be out during the holiday season, meaning it's going to continue to be strong. It's not going to have a whole lot of competition coming its way, because January is the place where typically movies go to die, so we're not likely going to see a lot of competition there. And historically, the only film actually competing, as it did come out around the same time over the Christmas slate, was that of Rogue One, which, again, this film is easily beating because it had a higher opening and also has had a much stronger hold day on, day out. And as you can see, this film also is pacing ahead of The Dark Knight, even when adjusted for inflation, which is the reason why there is good reason to suspect that this film will, in its end total, even when you adjust the numbers for inflation, still be able to beat out films like The Dark Knight. And so this is absolutely incredible that the film is pacing as well as it is. And so, as I said, this film's already at $1.1 billion by the end of this weekend. They suspect that it could be close to $1.3 to $1.5 billion. And again, this film is just doing gangbusters. And the fact that internationally, especially, it's doing as well as it is, basically surpassing the international box office of No Time to Die, which took months to get to its total. And this has done it in about 2 weeks' time. That is something that is incredibly impressive, and something that I don't think is being stated enough about why this film truly is a narrative breaker. I know a lot of people are going to try and say, well, you can't really say that because there's so many other factors going into it, man. Like, there's just so many things, man. You just don't understand. And I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm just saying, hey, the numbers kind of speak for themselves. And I can say, and all I can really look at here is, no, this is breaking so many of the narratives, so many of the various excuses, and it is just, again, truly amazing that we, for some reason, continue to allow many of the box office media and mainstream media to try to continue to use this as an excuse, and most especially to try and continue to fearmonger us when we know the truth. The truth is out there. But anyway, what are y'all's thoughts about this? Do you suspect that No Way Home could actually get to that $2 billion mark? And again, doing it likely without China, as we still, as of today, still don't have any word on an official China release date. And as I've been saying for a long time, I really hope that they don't. And I know that there's some people saying, but what about the people of China? Don't they deserve Spider-Man? I would say yes and no, because remember, they are still under a communist regime, and ultimately the powers that be only remain the powers that be when they are allowed to remain the powers that be. And the Communist Party of China has been clearly anti-human, as they have done various human rights violations that we know about, let alone the ones that we don't know about. So again, I would say I don't have a lot of sympathy as far as calling out China and calling out the Communist Party in any video that I possibly can, because I think it is important to do so. But anyway, do you think this film is going to be able to reach $2 billion and to do so without China? I think it's a possibility, especially with where this film is going and how far ahead it's pacing other films at the same time of its release. And again, I think that's an incredibly important performance and an incredibly important metric to look at. If we look at the week comparisons, let's see if we can find, so it looks like we don't have actual total numbers yet for this, but again, the fact that this film is, again, outpacing in its first opening week, outpacing Infinity War, outpacing Rogue One, outpacing Dark Knight. The fact that it's even in the discussion, that it's even within, somewhat of a range of even that of Avengers Endgame, though I am not saying that this film is going to reach $2.7 billion, though maybe with China it possibly could. I think it is still important nonetheless to, take these numbers in stride, to take these numbers and to really understand exactly what is going on and how important this really is and how huge this really is, especially for the box office numbers themselves. But anyway, what are y'all's thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, continue to keep track of everything going on with the box office at my site, ombreviews.com. On the opening page, I am keeping track of the battle between Sony and Marvel, specifically Spider-Man No Way Home, and the entirety of the MCU. So I'm trying to keep this as up to date as I possibly can. And I have it where you actually have the Sony Marvel split, so how much actual revenue they get. And because I'm using the Excel, it means that they'll have that frozen column there, which I know makes a lot of people happy. But then there's also, of course, the box office tracking page, where if you go to it, you will see that I'm keeping track of the wide variety of films that are in release. And the same thing, you can again track these things, see where they are currently in their losses, where their projections are. I'll be able to have projections for The Matrix Resurrections, which will likely be over a $200 million flop, as I mentioned in a video the other day. Sing 2 will probably be able to break even since it is doing relatively well. Kingsman probably won't be able to make its money back, if I imagine. Still don't really know all the financial details of American Underdog. And as I said, not a whole lot of new stuff coming out over the next couple of weeks because, as I said, January just not a very big month for film releases in general. Also, I've mentioned this on my live streams, but if you've been watching my channel for a while, or maybe if you're new to the channel, every year I do what I call the Wednesday Raven Awards as a way of boycotting and a way of protesting the Oscars, which have become insufferable. And so if you want to be able to participate in the Raven Awards, you get to submit nominations. That's right, you get to submit nominations, and then after the end, or at the end of January, I will see which ones have gotten the most votes, and then I will actually be able to create a ballot of which people will be able to vote for their winners. And again, don't follow this. It is still very much open. So please make sure that you fill out your submissions now. And if for any reason this is correct, I will make sure to fix it and to reopen it up for everybody. But again, if you are looking for that, and also if you are forgetting any of the movies that came out, I do have a link to the Wikipedia article that lists all of the American releases for the films in 2021, and all of the nominations and nomination categories I think are quite fun. So go ahead and check that out on my website, ombreviews.com. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below this video. Smash that like button, like that fire button. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my December Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members. Animation Commentator, Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Dolores Ed, Dion, Father Christopher Miller, Hail to You Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Hannibal Grimm, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeff Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyles 79, Laura, The Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson ×4, Mitch Dunaway, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody, Mondo Spieler, On to June, Orange Chat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Allen, Stan Andrian, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, and Tina Bojan, and of course, the Empress of the Universe, Tina B. Thank you very much for being my Patreon members. And for my Subscribe Star members, UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stan 4, John B., Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. Thank you very much for supporting me on Subscribestar. And to my 4 members over on Locals.com, Kara Tharp, UAB Mad Dog, once again, Mike Jackson, Biffer the Hobbit, and Robert Barnes. Thank you for supporting me on Locals, and if you want to have your name shouted out at the end of every video and live stream, check out the top link in the video description below. It's called Willow, or w.lo, Willow link. It'll bring you to all of my social media platforms and also to all of the various other locations that you can support the channel. You can get access to things like giveaways, where I do giveaways of 4K films, 4K steelbooks, digital codes, all kinds of stuff every single month. Also, there's a level where you get access to all of that, plus an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger, where you also get to ask questions that we will answer on every episode of the podcast. And at the final level, you also have the ability, the Chosen of Valhalla level, you have the ability to have all of that, plus in your first month, get a free t-shirt of your choice, any color, sent anywhere in the world, and also you get to be featured once a month on the Chosen of Valhalla live stream featured on the main channel. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, check out the link in the description. You're all amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.